Hello and welcome to the most excellent 80s movies podcast. It's the podcast where a filmmaker, a comedian, and their wonderful guests, sandworm through the movies of the 80s that we think we love or might have missed. And this is Dune, a movie selection from 1984.
A beginning is a very delicate time. Know then that it is the year 10,191. In this time, the most precious substance in the universe is the spice melange. The spice extends life. The spice exists on only one planet in the entire universe. The planet is Arrakis, also known as Dune.
You are about to enter a world where the unexpected.
Many dangers exist on Arrakis.
The unknown. An incredible secret has been kept on this planet. And the unbelievable meet. I see two great houses. Where kingdoms are built on earth that moves.
We have worm sign the likes of which even God has never seen.
And skies are filled with fire.
The prophecy which will cleanse the universe and bring us out of darkness.
Where a young warrior is called upon to free his people. A world that holds creation's greatest treasure.
He who controls the spice controls the universe.
And greatest terrors. A world where the mighty.
This is genocide. The deliberate and systematic destruction of all life on Arrakis.
The mad.
I will kill him!
I will love you forever.
And the magical.
Father, the sleeper has awakened!
Will have their final battle.
Long live the fighters! Do not show the slightest pity or mercy! Emperor, we come for you!
Dune, a spectacular journey through the wonders of space and the mysteries of time. From the boundaries of the incredible to the borders of the impossible. Now, Frank Herbert's widely read, talked about, and cherished masterpiece comes to the screen. Dino De Laurentiis presents Dune, a world beyond your experience, beyond your imagination.
That trailer was almost as long as the movie.
It truly is. And I will say, it is beyond my experience. It is like nailed it on that. So, and I have to say, like, why it seems like such a bad idea to base your entire universe's economy and like all parts of the economy, every piece of it, on something that only exists in one place. Like, that's just foolish.
I mean, that's not really the case. It's just the most valuable and important thing.
I mean, it seems like it's the only, like, they need it to travel, they need it to eat, they need it
To have enjoy a good weekend.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I am Chrissy Lenz, comedian for this podcast, director of the Neighborhood Comedy Theater in downtown Mesa, Arizona. And with me, as always, is filmmaker Nathan Blackwell.
Good morning. If I sound a little groggy, it's not because I'm sick. It's because it's very early and I've eaten too much peanut butter.
I mean it. We've talked about this. You got to stay away from the special peanut butter that's only on one planet.
It's normal peanut butter. It's just very early. Normally, there's a buffer of peanut butter recovery.
Oh, And we have a very special enthusiast with us.
A super
today.
fan of the podcast.
Yes, please tell us more, Nathan.
Jared, begin
No.
speaking.
No, you're supposed to say.
You are commanded.
No.
Nathan's so good at these introductions.
He really is. I can tell you, Jared, he has never once approved of my top to bottom introduction of anyone ever. Jared is a super fan of this movie and has a lot to say.
And super fan of the podcast, right?
And
Yay.
super fan of the podcast.
The Venn diagrams collide.
This is the perfect day for me.
Oh, I'm so happy. I'm so happy we were able to make it happen because
You better be good. You better be good on this podcast.
I better be. No pressure.
I had a really hard time watching this movie. So, walk us through your experience, Jared, of like, what is your how did you find Dune? Like,
why did you make us watch Dune?
Tell me all about it.
All right, so, my mom.
Wait a minute. Who are you?
Oh, see,
who am I?
That's what I was trying to make you do, Nathan, and you declined.
So Jared and I have known each other. Oh, geez, 10 years, over 10 years. We met each other at the Phoenix Zoo.
Yes,
we're both exhibit guides, and we were trusted to speak to the public, right?
Yeah, it was really wild, and I very much practiced my radio voice.
That's Celsius, right?
And look at all those stingrays. All right.
We did not last there long. But yeah, Jared and I have remained friends, and he currently is a physics teacher and a park ranger, and he plays pirate video games with me every week. So
I love it.
Accurate.
These are all accurate things.
Okay.
All right. So my background. My mom was apparently engaged to a guy, and I think this was like their last date or something. And,
Oh,
all right.
And so she thought that I should watch this movie regularly, and I pretty much wore the VHS copy of it out.
wow.
But this brings me to my favorite Nathan story. So, you know
Whoa.
how in junior high and high school, like, you have these book reports that you never actually finish the book for?
Mm-hmm. Very familiar.
My favorite Nathan story is he wrote a happy ending for 1984 because he never finished it.
Nice.
And I did that for Dune.
And I got like
not
a B.
Once, not once, but 4 times.
Wow.
I never finished it until probably 3 or 4 years ago.
So your favorite Nathan story is not when you faked my death?
Oh, that is a good one too. Well, my favorite Nathan biographical story.
Gotcha. Jared actually did jokingly.
The extended universe.
Mm-hmm.
Jared did jokingly fake my death in like a staff meeting at the zoo, but he was obviously joking, or so he thought. But 2 people believed him.
Oh no.
And I caught hell when I got back into town.
Oh my god.
I was at a film festival in LA, and there was an earthquake. And I was in it, and it was just a small earthquake, but he said that I was killed in the earthquake. And one person was emotionally hurt by it, and
Only one person, Nathan? Were you not?
I think only 2 people believed it, and then the other person, she was like completely. Oh, I thought you were dead. Oh, hi.
I had like 3 thoughts about it, and then I was fine. But here you are.
It bounced right off of her. Like no. Nothing.
Wow.
Anyways,
it's nice to know how people really feel about you. That was the gift I gave you that day, Nathan.
Yes, and I opened that gift.
Well, I am really glad that you have read the book, that you did finish it though, because like this is so clearly something that is based on source material that if you don't know, then you don't know, and this movie is not going to get you there.
Yeah, despite like how much exposition is just dumped on you in like the first half hour or like throughout the movie, it definitely. I mean, the movie suffers because it's so much story crammed into a 2-hour movie.
That's exactly right. Like this needed to be like a Game of Thrones style 8 season, 8 episodes a season, 8 seasons. There's one whole episode that is just about the bald ladies,
They're
you
actually
know.
making a mini series on HBO just about the Benny Gesserit.
Oh,
Really?
really?
Yeah, it's supposed to be coming out sometime with the new movie.
Well,
Mm.
good because you need it. There's so much information and you can
Yeah.
tell there's so much information and it's you don't get it, you don't get all of it. You can't get enough of it.
So,
Yeah.
fun factoid is that Frank Herbert's notes were so extensive for the kind of building end of all of this that his son has made a career out of just like writing off of those notes.
Good work if you can get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I fully believe that because you can tell that it's a book that it's this rich world and these very detailed things that you just can't explain it to me in this short amount of time. One girl at the beginning being like this is this and that is that isn't going to, but that's where we start. It's a
Well,
girl.
yeah, and it's an evocative way of doing it. Basically, you see a Starfield, and then a tiny young Virginia Madsen appears, and she's talking directly to camera, and it's a really interesting way of like not doing like the text or the crawl, because she's just so like intimate, looking right at the camera. But after that scene, we then basically have another scene where like the president of the universe is like describing how something else works, and then the scene after that is another scene of someone describing how this works. And at this point you're like 13 minutes in, and it's literally only been scenes of world building exposition.
Yeah, of
You're not
people
even to the world yet at
explaining.
that point.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, so when I was looking at trivia about this, one of the things I found was the theaters had to give out like a glossary of terms to people because it was doing so bad in the box office. And the glossary of terms, like I was looking at it and I was like, these things are really not like that critical to know what are, and they're kind of explained like because there's plenty of exposition. It's not for a lack of exposition.
No, it's not. It's just that there are too many things to explain. And like I kept thinking of Game of Thrones because there's a lot in Game of Thrones too,
Mhm.
but it has a connection to like a reality, like a medieval reality that we can understand. This is like, but it's also the future and it's also space. And so there's no toehold to
Yeah,
be
it's
like,
only 8,000 years in the future.
yeah,
And if my mom is to believe, the universe is only, what, 6,000 years old? So.
So there we go. So old, double old. Yeah.
Okay, so we start with the girl and she's like telling us stuff, and at one point she goes, "Oh yes, and I forgot to tell you." And I was like, "Girl, there's a lot you
Ugh.
forgot to tell me." And I'm not, you forgot and I already forgot, and we're none of us going to remember. But so then you said it, Nathan, we're in this throne room, and like there was a lot of Doctor Who here for me as well. So they like wheel in this ood in a bin, and
Like an enormous container.
with this little like tequila worm inside.
I don't know if I'd use the word little, but
Okay, you're right. A gigantic tequila worm inside.
Yeah, there was one guy just assigned with mopping after this giant container, and
And he didn't do a
one
good
was
job. He didn't get
one
any of it.
one was not enough.
It was not enough. And he had just like, he's like, "Oh, let me vacuum up all this like worm pee." But he didn't, he like did 2 little swipes and then there was a huge puddle left behind.
Mm-hmm.
What? So tell me, Jared,
yes.
who were those guys and what is the point of them?
So those are the guild navigators. And fun fact, there are no aliens in this entire universe.
Say
That
what?
that is a highly evolved human because we've had 8,000 years to evolve, right?
Uh-huh.
So basically,
Obviously.
the guild navigators use the spice to make sure that they don't crash into things when their ships are flying at light speed because they're not allowed to use computers.
Okay, tell me. Okay, I have so many questions. Why aren't they allowed to use computers? And how does spice help them navigate? I get it being like a sort of psychosilibate, like a shroomy helps you live
Mhm.
longer and helps you, see the world in a different way. That you got me. But how does it help you to navigate space?
It lets you see the future, and so that way you know which way to turn and not crash into asteroids as you're hurtling through space at the speed of light.
Which Star Wars taught us.
That is the perfect answer. It
Yeah.
makes and now it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Why couldn't they get that information to me in this movie?
I hear
Did
the
they
new.
try? Did
I
they
think the
try?
new movie has like one of those like little pop up webcams where like someone like Jared like pops in. Actually, this is how this happens.
I need that. I need a new rock stars
Thanks
to
to
be like,
the Gen Z.
yeah. Okay. Thank you for clearing that up for me. The first of many thanks. So in this world, everybody's like it's very Victorian, very Spanish looking.
I feel
Um,
like before we go any further, we have to tell everyone who doesn't know that this is a big budget movie directed by David Lynch. That this
Yeah.
is David Lynch giving the keys to the kingdom.
The sets, the costume, the color palettes are all off the chain. It is
Yeah.
so visually cool.
And if you don't know who David Lynch is, then go to hell, listener.
Go right to hell.
But yeah, he
or
is
you could very quickly let people know about Twin Peaks and stuff.
right. Twin Peaks, avant-garde filmmaker, not a typical narrative at all.
No.
And he wrote the screenplay for this, and I would say as close as you could get David Lynch to kind of like play by the rules, this is as close as you can get. Like in terms of the abstractness, like from what I know, and I haven't read the Dune books, it feels like he's pretty much like keeping to the canon of the world, wouldn't you say, Jared? Like,
Yeah, the Dune nerds are kind of upset about the weirding modules, the little sound weapons they have. But
Okay,
other
yes,
than
I have
that, it's
so
pretty
many
good.
questions about that.
That's a
don't-
strictly David Lynch invention.
It
oh,
is?
interesting. That's so interesting.
And can I throw in the one joke I got into my notes when I was watching the film?
Please.
Yeah,
Because it relates to this scene.
begin joke.
So the Emperor is straight up a James Bond style villain. He's got to give his entire plan out right at the beginning, his whole evil plan, and let everybody know what it is.
There was a plan.
Yeah,
Ooh.
to
Yeah.
kill
To
to
kill
put the
Paul.
to put the Atreides on Dune so that the
Right, 'cause
Harkonnens can get the Atreides out of the way.
Yeah, because he doesn't like them developing these powerful sound weapons.
Okay, I don't just go ahead, Jared.
About
Begin joke.
no, that was the joke. I was just
Oh.
comparing him to a James Bond villain. Remember, I'm
Okay,
not,
joke
I'm not the
received.
comedian. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Swing and a
here's the
miss.
thing is that they're like, oh, all of these words, the Atreides, the Harkonians, the Atraxis, the blah blah, the Melange, blah blah blah. You have to kill Paul. What? That's
I
the
did not
best
say
we could
this.
do?
I was not here.
Paul and Jessica are like they're only two people with like totes norm names. Why? Like Paul is the most boring name there is.
I imagine that's kind of the point. I mean, there's Duncan. Duncan's got a people name.
Yeah,
Duncan, Idaho.
but
Yeah.
Duncan is at least Shakespearean.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, hey, this is Paul. This
And
is
Jessica.
this is Fade, and this is blah blah blah, and this is yada yada. It's like it's tough. It's tough for me. All right, so We're not even one scene into this movie, friends, and we are
I feel
20
like
minutes
we're in
into
the
this
second
podcast.
scene. We're into the second scene.
Okay, thanks, Nathan. Thank you for keeping us going.
That's why I said is I'd have to tone it down because I could talk about this for weeks.
Yeah.
We appreciate your restraint.
So then, like, we meet Paul and the Atreus. Say the actual name.
The Atreides.
Atreides. I'm gonna call them the Atreus.
Okay.
Because I have at least context for that. Okay, so here's Paul. Paul is like a gorgeous little baby Kyle MacLachlan, of probably most famously Twin Peaks, right?
And Portlandia, he's the mayor.
Oh, that's right. Yes. So that's probably where our audience knows him from.
That really sent me on a trip.
And he just is so like it really helped ground me into understanding what was happening, to understand that his like modern approximation is Timothy Chalamet, because we like we'll talk about like, oh, if we were going to remake this, who would we cast? And like, yeah, you need like a delicate, pretty young thing, which is what Timothy Chalamet is. And so like I at least if that's how he's supposed to be, like according to the book, then nailed it both times, right?
Yeah, he's supposed to be like 15.
Yeah, and he's supposed to be a little delicate, darling waif, according to what I understand. So, but he is doing homework. He's fighting with Captain Picard. He's in.
Who eventually grows a mullet. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, but is it a mullet if there's no party in front?
It's the party in the back that matters.
Okay, yeah. There's but it seems like there's no business up front, and there's all party in back. But it seems like he's all business, except for the scene where, like, spoiler alert, the planet is getting killed, or at least Planet 1, Calidor. And he's running around, and there's soldiers everywhere, and he's running around with a pug in his arm.
Pug! Oh my god! Yeah, the pug. I love the pug.
That's when Arrakis is being attacked. Yeah. So Planet 2, yeah. Duh.
So yeah, I have 2 pugs, and I feel like it's mostly motivated by this movie. And one of my other good notes I took is so like pugs are depicted as these royal dogs, but really they're just like farty, snorty goblins.
Yeah. But I was so grateful that they showed us that the pug is safe. Patrick Stewart's got the pug, and I can stop worrying about that at least.
Yeah. At least that has a full closure. There's no lingering questions about the pug.
No. And no ever eventual answers about the pug. It's just there and it's fine, and then bloop bloopity boppity blue.
The most good script writing, David Lynch.
Yeah. So it's interesting to know that the sonic screwdriver devices are a total Lynchian addition and not in any way part of the Dune universe, because it seemed like something that was straight out of Doctor Who, that like we're going to use sound to create bullets.
Yeah,
am I getting that right?
So in the book, basically their shields make them have to do knife fights, because if you shoot a gun at the shield, it essentially sets off a nuclear explosion, and that's bad. And so I think for a movie, having all knife fights for battle scenes would be really terrible. And so he's like, well, we got to have a little bit better action for when it's fighting time, so let's invent these guns.
Which is fair.
I mean, I don't know. Like,
I don't hold it against him.
Game of Thrones like manages to, have sword fights that seem pretty okay.
Well, it's also tough because in 80s technology, so they've got their personal energy shields, but they're really kind of cumbersomely created on screen, and it's hard. Like it's probably expensive to hand animate that over the actor, and it's hard to even see which actor it is because of the animation. And so to have like an actual battlefield of all that going on, it's like we've already got a headache making everyone's eyes blue, sort of most of the time, or in some scenes.
Yeah, that seemed more complicated than it needed to be. Am I crazy?
Well,
their eyes should be always like their eyes should have always been blue, but they were kind of like making them blue only in some shots, towards the end because their effect of the spice. But yeah, that must have been just such a huge pain in the butt back then to hand animate their eyes.
So then this like bald lady comes in and she's like, I got this box and you gotta stick your hand in. That we're still at the beginning of this movie. And he sticks his hand in the box that tricks him into thinking that he's getting like burnt by acid. And then we get like the part of this movie that I think is the most well known, which is the "Fear is the mind killer" speech, which is the best part.
Mm-hmm. And
Okay,
that is in the books.
moving right along. So then
Wait, can I throw in my hand joke too?
please.
In my notes, I would get so hungry from the smell of my own hand cooking.
Fear is the mind killer. Hand is the dinner.
Remember the tooth.
Remember the tooth.
I was not here. I did not say this.
So then
We're not gonna make it past the first half hour.
okay.
We're gonna have to split this into 3 or 4 episodes, like the movie should have been.
Okay, I will zippity zap zip zap through what happens, and then we'll circle back. Okay, so there are these disgusting people. The disgusting gingers are the Harkonagons, and they are gonna kill all of the Atreyus and take over the planet. They do that. The mom escapes with the kid. They go to the planet. They find the Fremen. She drinks poison water that makes her bald. They learn to ride the worms. The worms poop the spice. The next thing that happens is that the big boss Bond villain gets mad because Timothy Chalamet is like taking care of business on the planet, so he goes to try and kill them, and they're like, joke's on you, we all have sonic screwdrivers and we ride worms now. And that's the whole entire movie Dune. Oh, and he has a baby sister that falls out of his mom when she drinks the poison water and is basically a tiny witch.
Yep.
Okay, so we skipped over some points I wanted to make. I'll just read them briefly. Ready?
Did we? I'm pretty sure I got it.
Here we go. Okay, so bigger eyebrows, please. Lots of exposition. Less heart plugs, please.
Oh, so much less. That's disgusting.
That's also a David Lynch.
I was not expecting so much gross out. And I'm so glad they didn't make Sting gross. I'm so glad they just gave Sting a little dick surfboard and like let him be.
Well, that's also supposed to be his characters. He's supposed to be the relief from the Harkonnen kind of tyranny and disgustingness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that worked.
Yeah, I couldn't. They were so gross that I couldn't deal with it. And he flies. What the fuck is that?
He's too fat to walk around.
Yeah, that was pretty great, I thought.
Yeah.
Great is the word that you're saying? Okay, tell me why it's great. Explain me.
So he's basically just this total hedonist.
Okay.
And part of that is him taking pleasure out of repulsing other people too. And so I don't know. I just think like in terms of a villain, what a great way to have a villain. I sense you disagree, but it's okay.
No,
I agree. Yeah, no, it's
just a little spittle on your face.
Yeah, that disturbed me in a way that will never leave me.
Yeah, when the movie, for like the first 20 minutes was a lot of world building, a lot of introductions, and when we eventually met like the Harkonnens, shit totally gets real. Like the villains, like it's like you have secretly gone down this into this basement in like a seedy bar, and there is some creepy shit going on there, and you would just love to race out of that room, but you're locked into it. That's what kind of this is. Like we get this 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 is the moment where it's like, okay, I'm pretty sure this movie was not meant for kids, and now I know it. You know.
Well, I have the coloring books to prove otherwise, Nathan.
Oh, good lord. Are these weird, gross monsters in the coloring books?
Oh, absolutely. One of my favorite pages, because I was leafing through it before we got on, was like the Guild Navigator, and they add like this whole line that's not even in the movie for the Guild Navigator. It's like, blend the extinction of Paul Atreides into your recipe, and you will come with a meal to our liking. It's like, that's for
No.
kids. That's definitely for kids.
No. 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 Yeah, what is it like? Oh, I got to get the right shade of green for all of his boils. Like, I've really enjoyed this coloring book. Tell me more about the coloring book.
I mean, I got it at Bookman's. It's pretty much what you would expect it to be, just like totally missing the boat on the audience for this book. And
Oh my god! There were the problems with this movie is so. First of all, I mean, David. So George Lucas offered Return of the Jedi to David Lynch.
I saw. Thank God, just thank God that didn't happen.
Yeah, because you can't put baby in a corner. You know,
No.
you can't tell David Lynch not to make David Lynch. You know.
And please don't let him make Return of the Jedi.
Yeah. And so he instead, you know, he got to make his own sci-fi movie, Dune.
And he was like, you know what I am going to take away is the Sarlacc bit. That's the bit I'm going to really
yoink. But then also it's tough to make Dune. Like anyone would have had a problem to have done this, you know?
And everyone did have a problem, and everyone has had a problem, and there's never not been a problem with the cursed object of making this into a movie.
Yeah, because it doesn't fit into a 2-hour box, you know? And it doesn't fit into the format.
It doesn't even fit into the Sci-Fi Channel miniseries.
Even a miniseries is not enough. You need this needs to be, you know, many different seasons of you know.
Yeah, because it's the thing is that the story is playing the long game. It's not just like, you know, like it could be summed up in a single encounter, you know, and then expanded out. You know, it's like Lord of the Rings, to where there's obviously a longer cast, and you know, and all these narrative debts that have to be paid off.
Well, and then the book series takes place over something like 25,000 years, too.
So. You're right.
It's exactly like if you tried to make 1 2-hour movie out of all of the Lord of the Rings, and you just had someone at the beginning be like, look, elves, dwarves, this bad guy, that guy's mean, these people have, you know, nose piercings. There you go. And then you're just like, wait, what? Because it just, and the whole second half, the whole part where Timothée Chalamet is in charge of everybody, it zips by in a heartbeat. And they're like, beep, bop, boop, he can ride the worms. Beep, bop, boop, the worm's poop is the spice. Beep, bop, boop, he loves Sean Young. Beep, bop, boop, here they are making out. Beep, bop, boop, oh, his sister fell out and she's in charge of everyone. What? I don't understand the water of life. I don't understand why it's poison, but it's okay for them to drink it. I don't.
Yeah, you had to make so many quick, like, you know, like Paul arrives with the Fremen, you know, and then immediately he's seen as the Messiah, and then he immediately is training them, and then he is, you know, immediately in love with Sean Young, and they, you know, they're Sean in Young the Bone Zone.
Doesn't say more than 20 words in this movie.
Right, before the Bone Zone.
And they have to let Zendaya talk more, or I'm going to be upset.
Okay, so here's the thing: is the second half of the Dune movie that the new one coming out. So the first half, I've heard that you don't even see a worm. Like it stops.
Wait. There's 2 halves.
Yeah, and then the second half is going to be told straight up from Zendaya's perspective.
Oh, good. That seems like a better way to do it.
Yeah.
That seems like a much better way to do it. Um, there was a lot of weird gender stuff of like the men can't see this and the women can't see that. That
Mm-hmm.
like all this.
The place that is terrifying to women.
Yeah,
Oh,
what?
don't worry, that just ramps up in the book.
Okay. All right. Well, it's
Okay.
like I would
Of
love
all,
to see a retake of this where it's like genders aren't binary and there's one person who's like, "Yeah, no, I can see it all. I see everything and I'm not afraid of anything. Ask me your questions."
so let me say of all this movie has the thing in life that disturbs me the most,
The
which is
tequila worms with butthole lasers?
nope. I'm fine with that. It is children in the 1980s with an adult woman's voice.
Oh my god, yes.
That was so prevalent, like in the 80s, and then and then earlier, to where that kid can't act, and so they dub over with a woman's voice. I think that we should do this, and it's always so dissettling.
Yeah, and then sometimes she's like, "And I think we should do that."
Uh-huh.
Well,
Yeah.
that's also kind of her whole deal because she was born not only fully conscious and like functional brain, but also with the memories of every woman who had ever changed the poison of the water of life. So basically she's experienced everything that every woman who's done that for thousands of years has experienced, and so she's thoroughly messed up by all of this.
Yeah, I mean, she's like
So she's got a lot of weird boyfriends
Yeah,
later on
she's
in the
got a
book.
lot to work out.
I have a question I want you to answer for me, Jared. Okay, I possibly have many questions, but I need this one answered. What is the deal with the gross gingers capture the like witch doctor of the Atreides, and they give him a cat in a cage with a rat taped to it?
I love that. It's another kind of David Lynch thing, but it is at least jiving off the book. But basically, they know that he's not going to be cooperative with them, and Duke Leto killed their Mentat by blowing the poison tooth at him. And so they're like, well, we need a new Mentat, so let's do some Harkonnen stuff and put a poison into his body that the only antidote is he has to stick around and pet this cat for us.
Yeah, it's all just mind torture or normal torture.
I But why was there a rat taped to the cat?
Visual effect?
Cinema.
Cinema.
Yeah, no, but I get it if it's like, yeah, we poisoned you and the only thing that will save you is to love this cat. It's like, okay, like haven't we all had a little taste of that poison? Like petting a cat makes you feel happy and the poison of life is driven out by it. But why would you tape a rat to the cat?
Well, see, in the book, they just like put the antidote in his food and don't tell him any of this. So if he tries to run away, he'll just die.
That makes
But
way
the
more
cat is so much more for cinema. It's beautiful.
Okay. Okay. And
Okay.
what even are the mentats? The big eyebrowed people who can't apply their lip liner correctly.
Okay, so that whole no computers thing.
Yeah,
That we
what is that?
mentioned. So at some point in the past, there was the Butlerian Jihad,
Uh-huh.
which essentially was they were very upset about AI, and they're like, yeah, no, we're not going to make any machines in the semblance of a human mind anymore. And so that kind of drove people to specialize in different things. So, like the Mentats essentially take the place of like calculators and computers. The guild sort of like or GPS systems, I guess. I'm not quite sure. Basically, the guild does their thing where they fly through space and try not to crash into things.
Okay.
And then the Bene Gesserit is kind of the most interesting because they are manipulating the genetics of the people, but they're also manipulating the religion the world, which is why Paul is able to just waltz in and get the Fremen on their side, is because the Bene Gesserit have put in all this forework of like, oh hey, there's gonna be this guy that comes along that's the son of a Bene Gesserit, and they're doing this in case a Bene Gesserit gets in trouble on Dune, which is really convenient for Paul to take advantage of all of this manipulation.
So that worked out.
And so that's the thing about how he had like 25 sisters that we never meet, and he's the only boy, and he was only a boy because she loved what?
Well, he didn't have 25 sisters. They were trying to breed the universe's superhuman. Like, that's kind of their whole genetic program.
Uh-huh.
And they're very upset that it was too soon because they can't control him. Like, they don't have their hooks into him deep enough.
Mm-hmm. And this was all in the pamphlet they gave out in the theater.
No, the pamphlet they gave out was just like, what's a Gom Jabbar? And she explains what a Gom Jabbar is. I don't know why we need that in the pamphlet.
Okay.
But it's at least in the coloring book, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You get to draw the pus flowing out of his hand.
So I also want to point out these are the things that are noteworthy. The slow motion shot of the young girl holding both the knife and the poisoned thumbnail as she's kind of like in ecstasy or in joy as there's like destruction behind her. That's noteworthy.
Yeah.
I didn't see any of that. I don't know what happened.
It was right at the end, so you might have been running out of energy.
I was.
And then like as the movie was wrapping up, there was a where like Paul has like, they've won the everyone's celebrating, they're giving out medals, the voiceover is, and then he became the hand of God. Da, 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 da. It's
Good
like,
night.
oh,
Thank
nice.
you. Thanks for coming. Bye. That's the end. Bye bye.
Yeah, so I guess like Star Wars is going left and these guys are going right. You know.
Yeah. Okay. So, what are we looking forward to in the new movie? What are we hoping to see? What do we think will be different? Like, have we learned so much in the last 30 years that we're gonna fix this?
Well, I've got a lot of faith in Denis Villeneuve as a filmmaker. Like I if there's anyone who can kind of navigate something that is both like sci-fi but yet spiritual and maybe a bit difficult, I feel like he can. But I also feel like it's still going to be an adult experience.
So for me, I really love the campiness and the visual psychedelicness of this.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a great suspicion that it is going to try to be gritty, kind of like I liked the Val Kilmer, etc. Batmans, but like Christian Bale Batman just doesn't do it for me because I just feel like they're trying too hard and it's not fun anymore.
It's too like real.
Yeah. So
I think the eyebrows will be toned down.
The eyebrows will be toned down. We'll have a lot less of a bad acid trip experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And those are the things I really love about this movie.
Yeah, and you're worried most of all about Lovely Fade.
Lovely Fade. Well, so the rumor has it is that Fade and Raban are just one character now. They totally did away with Sting's character in the new one.
Oh, I was kind of hoping we could just get today's Sting to be the same guy. All right. So what would you, on a scale of
of 1 tooth to 10 tooths?
Yes, exactly. And that you must never forget. What do you rate this movie? And I want to hear everybody's like reasons for why as well. So let's start with Jared because I feel like that's going to be the top, and then we'll have
the easy one. Yeah,
steady slide downward.
Yeah, well, I mean, I get how people don't like this movie. Like, it is a lot to deal with, but
right. That should have been the tagline. It's a lot to deal with.
This movie's a lot, guys. That should have been in the preview.
Right. The preview was so long it didn't manage to get that in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they edited that. Had to edit that out of there. I mean, I think this is a great movie to have on in the background of a bar on silent because it's
Mhm.
just
Yes.
visually beautiful. And if you're not trying to like follow the story, it is a great movie. And if you read the books, you can totally follow the story.
Yeah,
So
like
for
in
me,
in like 2-minute sections, it's like I've never seen anything like this, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
this movie is amazing, and I love it.
Okay. Okay.
So is
Yeah,
that a
So
10
you
out
give
of
it a
10?
10.
I don't know that I'd call it the perfect movie because it could certainly be a lot better.
Mhm. So maybe
So,
a 9.2?
oh, we'll give it a generous 8.
A
Okay.
generous 8. Okay. Okay. Nathan, I'm excited to hear your filmmaker thoughts on how this movie ranks.
So it's difficult because
It is difficult.
in some ways it's impenetrable and abstract, and in some ways you can tell you know, it's like the inherent mythology of Dune is compelling and has like, you know, like aspects of it that is just beyond this movie. And then I'm thinking of like where else do I know about this stuff, about the sandworms and the spice? It's got to be mainly from this movie because I didn't, or just kind of like connection with pop culture, you know,
Mm-hmm.
because I haven't watched the miniseries, I haven't read the books, but I know, I feel like I know things beyond what's in this movie, you know.
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, I don't know. Because in terms of making a recommendation, it's tough for me to say like, oh yeah, this is definitely like a 5 or a 6 in terms of actually experiencing it. But I feel like there's a lot of very interesting and well done and compelling, you know, art in the movie to kind of maybe bring it back up to something like a 6.7, you
Okay.
know, in terms of inexperience.
Mm. Yeah. Okay. I hear ya. Yeah, I can't do that. I'm gonna go ahead and just give it like a 3 because yeah, I enjoy the campiness of it. Like the campiness of it was great, but I just couldn't. I was just like, what's happening to me? And I can't. And you can tell that like you all said that you can tell the source materials there. You can like I'm interested in what like David Lynch has to say to me visually. I'm interested in the performances, but it's just like no, thank you. I will pass on this movie forever. But I'll probably see the other, the new one just out of curiosity, just out of like the curiosity of like pushing a bruise, like all right, let's see what you got. And I'm so sorry, Jared.
It's okay. I totally get it.
Okay. Good. So what is your deep cut recommendation? I'm so excited to hear everyone's deep cut recommendation and how you arrived at it. Does anyone want to go first?
I would like to go last because I have a suspicion that Nathan's going to mention something that I'll be referencing. And
is
then
this
that way we won't have to talk about it twice.
Jodorowsky?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so my first is maybe not the deepest, but then I want to go slightly deeper. So it's actually 2 recommendations. So I think like the obvious choice is Jodorowsky, and I know I'm mispronouncing that.
Jodorowsky.
Jodorowsky, yeah, Alejandro Jodorowsky is a avant-garde filmmaker, even crazier than David Lynch, who tried to make Dune before David Lynch.
What
And his version was
would
going
I
to be
have
14 hours.
would I have
Yeah,
seen anything to put him
no,
in a context for me?
no,
No.
yeah, no. And so he's a Chilean filmmaker, and his version would have just been batshit nuts. Like, in terms of some of the cast, it would have been like Salvador Dali, it would have been Orson Welles and Mick Jagger,
Mm-hmm.
David Carradine. And then the drawings were fantastic but insane, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a wonderful. I think it's still on Netflix. There's a wonderful documentary that goes into what his version of Dune would have been.
Yeah, I couldn't find it for free, but I think you can rent it for like $3.
Yeah, yeah. So that's like the surface level recommendation. If this fascinates you, or just in terms of filmmaking you want to go to, and I'd say if you want to go further into Dune itself, there's a great podcast called Imaginary Worlds that goes into kind of like the making of fiction and how it affects people. And then there's an episode called The Book of Dune, where they talk about some of the things of how the themes in Dune, and how Frank Herbert brought so much of Islam, which he is not a member of, into the sci-fi universe. And is it appropriation? It did inspire people who were Islamic and didn't see themselves represented in sci-fi. But at the same time, they also talk about like just the series of Dune and how difficult the series itself is to adapt and to put into a movie context.
Yeah, it
So
really is. It really is.
it's a really nice conversational, well researched show, and they do all sorts of great topics. But yeah, the Imaginary Worlds, episode 72, The Book of Dune.
Excellent. And Jared, do you have something he didn't take away from you?
Yeah, absolutely. Because I was hoping to just build off of the Jodorowsky's Dune conversation,
perfect.
and in order to introduce my actual recommendation.
Go Team Venture.
Go Team Venture. But in Jodorowsky's Dune, they talk about how like they had so much work put into this, all these storyboards and all this. H.R. Giger did a lot of the storyboards, and so a lot of his work in this just got cut whole cloth and put into Alien.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And like, so this movie, like all the work that got done to make the Jodorowsky Dune, just totally like kickstarted all the sci-fi moving forward from that. And like they make a great case about how much it influenced everything going forward, even though it was never made, the Jodorowsky Dune. And so like Frank Herbert tried to like kind of start this club of like, we're poor authors and not rich enough to sue George Lucas over Star Wars. But like it's basically like, okay, so you've got this kid who's supposed to save the world from an evil empire who grew up in a desert, huh? And so like Dune was super influential. And then after so my recommendation, circling back to where I was supposed to be focusing, is the comic book The Inkle, which Jodorowsky and Mobius. Mobius is kind of this famous French graphic novel illustrator. They started this comic book, The Inkle, in 1981, and they were obviously doing that after they worked together on Jodorowsky's Dune. And it is so great and super influential. Like Brian Michael Bendis of Marvel fame talks about how just outraged he is that like pieces of this book are cut whole cloth and just put into other things, because it's just so it's great and it's influential and not a lot of people know about it, so they feel like they're just free to plagiarize it how they will. But yeah, the Inkle is great. Alejandro Jodorowsky and Mobius wrote it together, and that's my recommendation.
That is a good one. Excellent. So I have two. One is like much like y'all's first one also is not that deep of a deep cut. I want to recommend the Hugo and Nebula Readership podcast, hosted by past and future guest Alice Baker and Anne Spangler, and they are reading through like chronologically all of the Hugo and Nebula award winners, including Dune. So you can listen to the episode about Dune and like really understand the book piece of the puzzle. And then my actual deep cut recommendation is the Green New Deal. Let's not let our planet become a
An Arrakis.
sandworm ridden wasteland where everybody is like digging around for worm poop. And that's let's save this here planet, folks. So yeah, so that's me. Thank you, Jared, for being a guest and explaining to me so many things that I still don't understand, but I feel like I am less in the weeds about. I'm still in the weeds, but I'm closer to the road.
Oh, don't worry. It took me like 6 times of finishing the book to finally like. It's one of those things you have to work at.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether or not it's like actually even worth working at. Like, but I'm glad I did.
Good. Well, then that's
Good.
you know.
Well, I'm glad too.
No regrets. No regrets.
No regrets.
What would you like to tell people to go see? Like, if you don't have your own like podcast or anything, is there another one you want to recommend, or is there anything you want to try and signal boost for yourself or for anyone else?
Take a physics class and go for a hike, I guess.
Hell yes.
Make sure you drink lots of water.
Just not in that order.
Pick up your trash.
Yes.
Don't mess with the rattlesnakes.
Thank you. Those are all such meaningful things. Nathan, where can people find all of your brilliant filmmaking and nuance?
As always, squishystudios.com is probably the best place to go to see our work. Don't update it super regularly. We do have a Facebook and the Twitter and Instagram under Squishy Studios are basically my personal. But we do have a big project coming up. So stay tuned.
And
to learn more.
You're in film festivals with the
we just our short film Star Saga is playing at Gen Con this weekend. By the time this podcast episode will have come out, it's probably would have passed.
Mm-hmm.
But we are also playing at Film Quest in Utah.
Excellent.
So,
can I add to my recommendation, my plug?
Please do.
Watch Nathan's Eden Valley claim. I'm in it, and it's good.
Yeah.
I'm not biased at all. It's his best work.
Thank you. That was a short film that I did for my 40th birthday. I wanted to go out to a cabin and film a silent movie on film with my friends. And so, yeah, that was a lot of fun where we just made a silent movie on film on Super 8.
And I legitimately punched Adam Rainey in the face because I didn't have my glasses on.
Well, I mean, I'm sure Adam gets it. Okay. And yeah, you can find me at, if you're in the Arizona area, at the Neighborhood Comedy Theater in downtown Mesa. You can find me online at all things NCTPHX. And of course, find all of the Most Excellent podcast things at mostexcellentpod.com, Most Excellent Pod on the Instagrams. And, please, I can't stop asking because I can't stop needing you to like, rate, review, thumbs up, share, tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell a child that is in fact an adult with all the memories of all the women who came before her. Just tell someone and you'll be doing me a favor and all of us. Thank you again for listening and for considering doing all of that and possibly even taking action about it.
Don't forget to remember the tooth.
Remember the tooth, please.
Remember the tooth.
The tooth. Remember the tooth. And while you're out there in the world, please remember to be excellent to each other and
remember
the tooth.
I was not here. I did not say this.
Yay! Great job, everybody.
Yay!
Yeah.
Lovely fade.
Lovely fade.
We barely even got into it.
We didn't. We didn't. Yeah, we skipped over and then the last 90 minutes went like this.
I'm glad
only
that
15 minutes over budget.
I'm glad that the new one is in 2 parts though, because it's not one movie. It can't be.
Yeah.
Ugh. All right.
Well, even like the 14-hour miniseries. Yeah. It's rough.
Yeah, the 14-hour miniseries didn't get past like the first room.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't believe it's season, it's like the 7th hour. They're still in the first room. They're still explaining how the spice melange works.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna stop.